I really think that yoga is for everyone. You can find practices that are yogic that help lead you to this state that are not necessarily within the, from India. It may not have the title of yoga, but there are other ways out there. I do believe that energetically, for the world to be a better place, that it would help all of us to find some kind of system to balance our lower energy centers so we stop living in them and come up to the heart, and then be able to manifest what that does for us out there in the world.
Hi everyone, Happy New Year. How are you? I'm doing pretty well, no complaints. I'm up here in Sandpoint, Idaho, enjoying the last few days of the holidays, getting in as much time as I can up on Schweitzer Mountain, and also having some great family time. I'm Lauren, the host of Yogakane. Welcome. Yogakane is a podcast that is all about the awesome yoga community in the beautiful Pacific Northwest. This is episode 2, A Yogis Fusion with Ara Lyman, the owner of the very special Spokane Yoga Shala. So Ara and I don't know each other that well. I've been to a few of her classes, and we have met on a number of occasions where all we do is basically just geek out about yoga. The last time that we did this was at the Northwest Yoga Feast, a yoga festival in Sagal, Idaho. Quick side note about Northwest Yoga Feast. It is happening this summer, 2019, the weekend of July 19th. So mark your calendars, go follow them on social media, visit their website, and sign up for the festival. Anyways, at the feast this last summer, Ara and I were chatting, and before you knew it, she had me demoing camel, the camel pose, and she gave me some great modifications, which has helped me immensely feel more comfortable in the posture, because that posture used to irritate the back of my neck and my lower back. And so what she had me do was, instead of reaching the crown of my head to, let's say, the wall behind me, what she had me do was lengthen more up through the crown of my head, bringing my chin into my neck. So it created a longer cervical spine, which in turn just kind of took that stress out of the back of my neck and distribute it better throughout my whole entire body. In this episode, Ara and I cover a lot of ground. In the first part of the episode, Ara takes you on a journey where she shares her story to the yoga mat. She talks about Bikram yoga, Ghosh yoga, and Kundalini yoga. And then later on in the episode, Ara provides some best practices for students and teachers of yoga. So much good stuff here. So here you go, episode 2 with Ara Lyman, A Yogis Fusion. Good thing I checked. Okay, well, I am here at the Yoga Shala with Ara.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
Happy to be here.
Me too. Well, let's just get right into it. So if you could just introduce yourself to us and go from there.
My name is Ara Lyman, and I am the owner of the Spokane Yoga Shala. I've been teaching yoga for about 10 years, teaching yoga pretty much full-time. Yoga has been a huge influence. It's made a huge impact in my life and my well-being. And ever since I started practicing yoga, it was my goal to share yoga with others. I'm also an artist. Owning a yoga studio has made that kind of go on hiatus a little bit, but it's still there. I'm a mother of 3 boys, and I have a wonderful partner, John, so life is good.
Yeah. How old are your boys?
My oldest is 23, and then 16, and then 10.
Oh my gosh.
Actually, no, 11. Oops, 11.
They're all over.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And do they all get along pretty well?
Yeah, they're all so far apart in age, though, so it's kind of like they're 3 only children.
Totally. They're different families for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the oldest of 5.
Okay.
And the youngest is 14.
Oh, okay.
So we are 15 years apart, give or take, and so him and I are pretty close. But yeah, I hear you. It's different kind of dynamics,
Totally
different families going on, even though it's the same parents, but you just grow as a parent with that.
Totally. And my youngest, my 11-year-old Arlo, he is developmentally delayed. So that sort of dynamic that would come about from like youngest sibling, you know, all of that isn't really there. You know, I mean, he's pretty much like a baby. Yeah. So everyone helps take care of him.
I have a sister with Down syndrome.
Okay.
Yeah, and she is on the lower functioning spectrum.
Okay.
And so she will always be in the house with someone in the family. So, and it's really hard, isn't it? Yeah.
It's different. We have caregivers. I'm really grateful for that. We get a lot of caregivers that come in from a company that provides caregivers, and then his aunt Jenny, who is basically like his other mom, really. Like, she loves him so much, and so she's really devoted to him, and I'm, again, super grateful for that, because myself and his dad we're both really, really busy all the time. So it just feels like we had to create a much larger extended family to help Arlo.
Yeah, shout out to Aunt Jenny and the caregivers.
Yes, big shout out, because without them, my job here would not be possible. Yes. Very grateful.
Oh, wow. I had no idea. That makes a lot of sense, though. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, my gosh.
I have a lot going on in my life.
Yes, you do. Yeah. There's a lot there.
Yes.
Okay, so now so your yoga journey, how long have you been teaching yoga?
Well, about 10 years. I started practicing when Robert, my 16-year-old, was a baby.
Okay.
He's almost 17 now, actually. So I've been practicing yoga for about 16 years. And I started practicing because the way I used to move my body, I used to love to go running, or I would do long, like, power walks. You remember power walking? Yeah. And I started getting an issue with tendonitis in the hamstring connectors, you know, up there in those sits bones. And the more I walked, and I think it had to do with them getting weak from pregnancy and everything. So the more I walked, the more it hurt. And I tried to get help from my doctors. Can I get physical therapy? My insurance wouldn't provide physical therapy. They said, well, if you, the only way you can get physical therapy is if you actually have had an operation first. So I was at Ross, Dress for Less, one day, and they used to have this big table with VHS tapes. This is before CDs, I mean, or DVDs. I mean, I think they may have just been coming out with them, but I didn't have a DVD player then. And there was this tape called The Joy of Yoga with Sarah Ivanhoe and Crunch Fitness. And it was this 45-minute routine. And I got it, and I was like, okay, because I've always wanted to do yoga. There was always something there. I've always wanted to try it. I don't know why sometimes it takes you that long to actually do something that sounds interesting to you.
I know.
So I took it home and tried it, and I knew right away that it was helping me. It was really hard, because at that point I was really out of shape. I hadn't done anything for a while because of the pain I was experiencing, but it did not cause me pain when I did that. So I kept doing it, and I was so sore. I did it every day, you know, and then I tried to learn as much as I could about yoga, reading books and everything, and for some reason I wanted to avoid taking a yoga class, like, you know.
You go to a studio.
Right, yeah. Okay. I just wanted to learn this myself, you know. And I did that for a while.
Are you sure you're not Pitta?
Yeah, I did that for a while. I just think I was feeling shy and insecure about it, and I did research on different styles of yoga that would be good for someone like me. I knew I had a lot of like disconnect from my body too. Like I didn't have that good body mind, you know, proprioception really. And I heard that Iyengar yoga was really good for that, for helping with alignment. And at that time, the only yoga studio in town was Harmony Yoga. And so I called Ali, and she said, oh, I do teach Iyengar style yoga. And so I went and saw her in the first class. I learned so much. It was so wonderful. So I studied with Ali for a few years, just taking her class like once a week. And then from there, I started exploring other styles of yoga. I also am hyper flexible, so after a little while, like I started hurting myself. You know, it was like the yoga helped me feel better, but then I started getting, you know, really into my joints, and Iyengar yoga, I love it, but it is a lot of extreme stretches. Like you're always like, oh, you know, stretch all the way here, move this here, a lot of leverage. So I started hurting myself a lot. And so just trying to find other ideas and styles from other teachers that helped. And Ali was wonderful. Like she really set me on the right path. But, you know, one teacher does not do everything for the person. The person has to find their way inside and listen, you know, and I'm sure Ali told me all kinds of things that I couldn't make sense of. You know, I can now, but, you know. So, I mean, I went through vinyasa yoga, you know, alignment-based vinyasa yoga. I tried some Ashtanga, which with my hyperbendy joints really did a number on me. And again, that's all me learning how to incorporate my body. I don't blame the styles of yoga or anything like that. And I was in an especially painful period in my body from, you know, things I was doing to myself, as well as after having Arlo, my special needs child. And I just think all of that like locked me up. So I took a Bikram yoga class, and I knew I was going to hate it because Bikram yoga doesn't talk about alignment very well, you know, when they say things like lock the knee. But I did it, and I was, once again, I can do this. This is healing for me. This is really what I need right now. And I felt it. And I did at that point know enough about alignment so that I could safely do it. And it was exactly what I needed. It was so freeing on my upper body, and I needed to strengthen my lower body a lot more. And that yoga does all of that. And the heat helped me release and stretch, healed my neck. There was a lot of neck flexion, but you would think that, you know, oh, that might hurt your neck. No, it freed it up. It was so good for me.
Yeah, because we're in a lot of extension.
A lot, like, and then getting that flexion. We did this a lot, you know, the lifting the chin and looking back and up. And at first I was like, we're not supposed to do that,
right?
You know, but
but in life though, if you have a baby, like you had a baby and kids, so your chin is to the neck, your shoulders can get rounded, or you're on the phone or on the computer. So we kind of do a lot of this like rounding.
I needed to
so you need
release
to
that.
Open the chest, open the throat,
So, I mean, it was painful at first doing it, but it did help. And then once I started that, though, it was interesting. I think Spokane Yoga Shala here started its first yoga teacher training program, and it involved Ali, Judy Sugg, Karen Frankovich from Coeur d'Alene, and then Katie Cooley here. She was Katie Gen then, I believe. And I did that training, and so it was wonderful, well-rounded yoga training, you know, and all the mostly Krishnamacharya-based lineage practices. And meanwhile, I'm doing this Bikram stuff on the side. And I mean, I love the training. It was great. I learned so much, but I decided to continue on with the hot yoga because it was so healing for me. So I did another training in that. That was a 350-hour training. It was a really intense training.
So was that right after your 200-hour?
Not long after, yeah.
Like how many months?
It was like 2 months after, I think. I know, it was crazy.
Who'd you go with?
Well, it was through Beth Gallus before there was Yara or anything.
Okay.
It was in her basement. She had a small studio in her basement, and we did the training there. And yeah, it was really challenging. And again, I was challenged with some concepts and ways that the training was, or like the methods of that training, to me weren't what I thought of as how a teacher should interact with students. But at the same time, I decided to do it and commit to it, and I learned so much. Sometimes you can learn a lot from doing something that you don't necessarily think is your way or the right way of doing things. You know, I wasn't allowed to adjust students. I had to just use verbal commands. But, you know, I learned how to look at people. I learned how to watch their bodies and learn how they were moving instead of just stepping in and adjusting. So I learned a lot. I watched so many people all the time and watched, you know, what was happening in their bodies. And one of the basic things that I took away from those first couple of years of teaching that yoga was everybody is really stuck in their upper bodies and higher energy centers, and they're disconnected from their lower energy centers.
Above the heart,
Here,
heart chakra,
neck,
up.
Shoulders, everything, all of that, super stuck here. And then a real disconnect from the first 3 energy centers, really.
Disconnect between the 3 of them, or disconnect to the top?
All of that. Like disconnect from just being rooted to the earth, knowing how to use your core muscles, all of that, and then putting everything up here, everything up in the neck and the shoulders. Everyone moves from here, you know. So that was really interesting to watch, and that helped me, you know, refine some of my alignment teachings and how to help people with, you know, bringing that energy down. And over the years, as I've learned from yoga really teaches this, you know, to connect to your lower energy centers so that you can take the energy there, because that's where all your power lies, and bring it up into the higher energy centers. It teaches you to create space in the upper centers, because that's really the element of the upper energy centers is space, ether. So you want to maintain that space, and then, you know, get the stuff that's going on down below more balanced. That's the area. Those are the areas you want to energetically connect with the most. Those are the areas you want to energetically balance the most.
Like day to day,
Yeah, I mean, if you are having, you know, like issues related to root chakra, you know, just feelings of, you know, being in fight or flight a lot, you know, PTSD, things like that, yoga really can help you find methods to balance that a little more. Not saying that doing yoga is going to fix all of that automatically. Just having a yoga practice is going to lead you to ways that are going to help you, you know, I don't know the right word.
It's like a building block on your road to healing or moving through that trauma or PTSD.
Well, how is your intuition going to work? You know, your third eye, you know, how is that going to lead you with clear perception if you are having all of these other things going on?
See,
you know?
I know. How I kind of think of the chakras is like the pyramid of, I can't remember what the pyramid's called, but it's like the pyramid of, the health food pyramid. So like the bottom is like what you need, that day-to-day stuff, and then once you have that settled, not the health food, but I think it's Pavlov's pyramid or something, I don't know what it's called, but it's like you have housing, you have a warm place, you have food, you have your basic needs met, and that's your root chakra. And then from there is that next layer, and
emotions, your relationships with other people,
fun, playfulness. So once you're grounded, you then can move up into the second chakra of playfulness, sweetness, and then once that's there, you then so I kind of see it all as like
bring it into your fire and direct it. And then the heart center really is that bridge between the upper and lower energy centers. And so when you strengthen and balance and work with your basically it's the physical stuff. It's all the physical stuff really that you're working with the gross body. And you're doing that to support the heart center, because your heart center needs support. And then, you know, in kind of the, you know, woo-woo version of it is, you know, you take that energy up through the bridge of the heart, and then you can move from your heart center, that heart wisdom in the world, because yoga says we want to move from the heart wisdom rather than just the head wisdom. So we move through that bridge of the heart and bring it up into the upper centers, so you can operate from a more, you know, total mastery of being, rather than just being disconnected from who you are and, being a talking head or, whatever. That's how I was when I first started yoga. I had no connection to my body. I was super intellectual, but no real balance down there either. And I would, I'm still a daydreamer, I still like that vata, my thoughts going off into the universe all the time.
My Shavasanas are crazy.
Yeah, and that's normal. That's okay. When some people tell me that they just lay there in Shavasana and they're very calm and nothing happens, I'm like, wow, that's really cool. I think it took me the first 10 years of yoga practice to even begin to get a sense of that.
Really?
Yeah. And my body, like I come across as pretty mellow, but my mind is like 10 zillion trillion miles an hour.
Right.
So yoga has helped me with that a lot.
And kind of control, like move it and redirect it so that it can become productive. Because it's I'm like that as well. I'll have thoughts in my mind or ideas that I want to put into action. And those are great. I'll write it down, but then I have to pull from other parts of me to follow through. And that's, for me, it's that connection. And so, so do you have any suggestions, like, on how to connect? Because I feel like that drive is from the third eye and the solar plexus.
Well, and your voice too, like your voice, really, like that's how you create in this world, is with your voice. And yoga, yoga acknowledges that. So we are careful about how we direct that power with our voice and our vibration. I was just reading an article this morning that everything, and I've been studying this for a while, but I guess this would belong in the realm of quantum physics, that everything has a specific frequency. So yoga, that's a huge thing in yoga, and it's not really something that's brought into the West as much. It is beginning to be more now, but a part of yoga is sound. And so we use sound to transform our frequency, to bring us up to a frequency that helps us see more clearly, really, so we can perceive the world more clearly as it is, rather than based on all of our own fluctuations of the mind and our conditioning and our culture and everything else. I mean, are you ever going to be completely free from that? I haven't met anyone that is, but I know that there are people out there that are possibly like that. I'm not. The way I see things is still based on, all of that, but I have definitely grown. So I believe that yoga practice is really effective in teaching you those things. So,
like almost on how to see duality, but to just love it for what it is.
Yeah.
And so you could have these ideas or business plans or just motivations or dreaming, dream ideas. But at the same time, instead of I was reading The Wisdom of Yoga. Have you ever? It's by Stephen Cope.
I don't think I've read that one.
Well, Allison, she recommended it for me to read because she did a training just recently, and in there he talks about how the practice of yoga, in the meditation more the meditation part of it gives you this ability to see what is going on, but not to be so
reactionary.
As reactionary. So you can still have all these beautiful thoughts and but you can also see like bad things happening.
Yeah.
And instead of being more reactionary, you can more come from that deeper part of you, so that we're not so associated with our thoughts, but we're more associated with that deep part of us. And when you move from that deeper part, you're moving with a deeper intention that's truer to you, so you can do something that's more concrete or more
right. I mean, your effectiveness or your potency as a human being it again is more effective because you're not being pulled about. And in yoga philosophy, that's hugely related. A lot of it is to gunas. So when we practice our yoga, we're learning to not being pulled about by those elements. We're learning to be in a more sustaining sattvic state.
So what are the gunas
people,
for us that might not know?
Well, there is tamas, which is kind of more related to on the negative side, like depression, heaviness, decay. On the positive side, we all need death, decay, heaviness. That would be our tamasic state, ideally, is when we sleep. So we need to have a tamasic time, but you want to balance it. So in yoga, in philosophy, they talk a lot about shifting between two states. The other one is the rajas state, which is fiery, doing. We're all, there are different levels of being bipolar here for a lot of us. The more extreme example is if you are bipolar, then you shift between tamasic and rajasic states, and it's hard for you to find that middle ground, which would be sattvic state, the sattva state. So yoga practice really essentially is trying to get us to ride in that sustaining sattvic state, as opposed to being pulled about by, our thoughts, which can be affected by our gunas, so the way we think, if you eat something that is heavy, that makes your mind move slower, your body heavier, your thoughts are going to be more tamasic, you're going to have less energy, so you want to look into how to keep that from being something that happens a lot, right? It's common sense. And the same thing with rajasic state. If you're constantly stimulating yourself and going out there, like Vata people can be too, it's every dosha can do that. And then what happens, though, if you're going between those two, you constantly have to, there's a balance that has to happen, so you're going to fluctuate from the two all the time. So yoga practice is trying to create that state where you don't have to go between those two. You're able to see more clearly. You're not at the whim of your states of being constantly all the time. Right. So therefore, they talk about things like diet, do a regular practice, because that helps you to stay in that regular, ongoing, sustaining state. And then the more you do it, the more you learn to observe, oh, I'm going off here, it's just my gunas.
Right, yeah. That's
it's not me, it's not my essential state of being, but it is affecting my mind state, really, that chitta, the mind state, it's affecting that. That's what's making me feel this way, or, having this happen with me.
So you can be more of a witness, or more almost like a bird in a tree. So you can kind of see what's changing, and then you can also see that the backlog of that. You can kind of see, okay, so this is why this is happening. This is why I'm becoming more Raja. It's because, is that the right way to say that?
Yeah. If you're getting heated. So Rajas is heated and fiery, and you
can see, well, these chain of events happened. That's where this is coming from. You can be a bit more observant and almost more, we're almost more of a scientist. Almost.
Well, that's why they call it yoga technology. They call it a science, really. And the rajasic state is, there are times of the day when it's better to be in a rajasic state, like midday. That's when your digestive fire is hottest. That's when your energy is highest. So, just learning to balance it. And yoga practice, if you practice yoga, you are studying yourself with this knowledge, so you get to know yourself more, like you said. So when these things come up, you go, oh, I remember that 10 other times, 50 other times this happened and I did this, but I'm learning that this is what's really affecting it, so I'm going to choose something different this time.
Right.
Because it's not like an instantaneous fast thing. It takes years. Do you get immediate results when you practice yoga? Yes, but it's a lifelong process. It is not going to be, oh, I did yoga for a couple months and now I'm totally enlightened.
Right. It's a lot of unveiling.
It's a lot of unveiling. A lot of unveiling. And actually, like, I feel like I'm at the state right now where I'm coming into a little more of an intermediate practice, where I'm starting to see actually how dense all of it really is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could you elaborate on that a little bit more, like intermediate practice? And...
Well, I know it just depends on the person, but there are states of being in your practice. And in the Kundalini yoga tradition, there are names for it. I actually don't have them memorized. Like the first couple of years, there's a state where you're just in love. It's basically like as a relationship, you're in love.
Okay.
You know, on into maybe like your 5, 7, you start to come into the real, like, you know, oh, I'm really working with some of this stuff now.
Because stuff has emerged, stuff came up. You're starting to see the reality of some of your partner. Or some
You're seeing the reality of your partner, you.
Yes,
you. Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And then, you know, getting into like your years 10, 11, 12, you're starting to get a little deeper sense of that, what that is. And I would have to look at that to be sure, because I don't want to say something and like have it be completely wrong. But it is basically those states of observation and knowledge through a practice, through a relationship. And again, this relationship is with yourself. The deeper you go, the more you see. And the first few years is easy, you know, it's just like, you could relate it to digging into the earth. Like, the soil is soft. There's all kinds of stuff there. You can easily excavate it. And then after a while, you get to like solid freaking rock, and you've got to use some dynamite. And probably dynamite for a while.
Chisel away at it.
Yes. At a certain point, there are times when you have to use some dynamite.
Get a crew in there to help.
Yes, get a crew. Totally. That's why yoga, another aspect of yoga is community. There is that sense of you getting an awareness of self, and that's really, really important. But the other part of yoga is you're developing that community sense. It's not just you. You're all connected.
Yeah, and then they can support your journey, and you're around like-minded people who respect what you're experiencing.
Right. Well, and that's like when you come into a classroom and we're all following, you know, with the teacher, and we're practicing together, and that's where you start to come into that group energy, that group transformation, this co-creation. You realize it's not all just you that's creating reality. We're all doing this together. And it's funny, like, you know, and that's when you know you have some people come into your class and they don't want to do anything at all that you're teaching them to do. Sometimes they will shift that if you have a conversation with them, or maybe they'll decide on their own, or maybe they'll go find another practice.
Yeah, how do you manage that if someone does come to your class and they just are doing something completely different and it's really obvious? You know, it's not like that they have an injury, or they're modifying because of a personal reason. They're just doing something that's it's completely different than what you're teaching. What do you, as a teacher, like, For me, because I do tend to teach traditional styles of yoga, and there are some teachers that just don't care about this. People go off and do their thing. But for me, I as more of a beginning teacher, I struggled with it, because my view on that was, it's rude. You're coming here to take a class. And then you doing this other stuff, you're not caring about your classmates. You're only caring about yourself, and you're disrupting, because trust me, other students, they always come up and tell me how disturbing it is when someone isn't doing that. As time has gone on and I've had to learn to be softer with myself and others, I try to approach it a little differently, you know. Sometimes I don't know what's going on in someone's life. Maybe they're insecure. Maybe they feel like they've got to do this thing. And yes, if you're going to go take a class from a teacher in a classroom and they're teaching a certain thing, you know, you kind of want to, you know, learn from the teacher and take the class. Otherwise, it might be better for you to find a different class, or
Maybe you're not ready for the group practice yet. I don't know what's going on, but I will approach people in sometimes just certain postures. If they're doing something that is sort of similar, but it's not within the sequencing, and if you're teaching a certain sequencing, you're bringing people through an experience. So I will say, that's a really nice such and such posture. Let's try to refine it by doing it this way. And I will take them there, or let's create a little more length here and come into this posture here. Just I try to honor them. They did take the time to come to the class, but it is hard because I have had students come in that I knew they were on their own, I guess you could call it a power trip. They wanted to show me they knew better than me, and they were going to do what they wanted to do and kind of not listen to me at all. And I have had to come up to them and say, this is really distracting for everyone else. And this is usually after I've, very plainly said, we all practice these postures together. This is disturbing for everyone else. Please follow along.
During class, you'll go up and whisper them.
I will quietly tell them that, and that usually works. If they don't, then they won't come back to my class. Usually, they just won't. I can use an analogy, like you came here to this class, think of it like a dance class, any class. You came here, we can liken this class to the foxtrot, okay? What you're doing is square dancing. Square dancing's awesome, but we're not square dancing in here. We're foxtrotting. So if you want to square dance, maybe go find a square dance class. And I try
have that at noon.
Yeah. And I do my best to be kind with it. But at a certain point, I had to learn as I keep having to learn this as a facilitator of space, holder of space for others, that I can't let one person derail the energy of the whole group. It's my job to maintain the energy of the group and to allow this experience for others who know what's happening, who came here for this experience. And if I'm not being careful of that and people are off doing other stuff and it's disturbing, then I have to say something to them.
It's kind of like that one thought in your mind, like you could be on an amazing trip with your family, but you have that one thought that's just like eking into your mind. And you just can't let that one thought ruin your vacation. So you have to find a way just to let it exist, but to not let it alter the room. Because what I'll experience in the class when I'm a teacher is if I do see a student doing something different, I will start to second, because I'm still a new teacher. I'm very new.
Oh no, I remember that feeling.
I'll second guess myself. Like, am I doing this right? Is something wrong? Are they not happy? And so I'll start to get in my own head, which then puts me into a state of more, not being egoist, not being an ego, but it puts me more into a me state. Where
when it throws you off balance too.
Yeah, because when you're a teacher, it's not what you're teaching is what your teachers have taught you. You're just like you're just like you said, holding that space for the student to experience. And there are varying degrees. Like some people I caught on to that over the years, that someone's throwing me out of my ability to carry space for others, and I'm allowing it to happen. So I will put a pretty little pink bubble around them and just let their energy stay in that little bubble. And I will keep doing what I'm doing, as long as it's not like too disturbing. They're doing their thing. And again, those types of students often won't come back to my class because they get that this is a specific thing we're doing. Especially like the hot class, the 26-2. We do it a certain way, and it is all about group energy. We all move together, we breathe together, there are modifications for the postures, but we are linking into this energy that each posture offers. They are specifically sequenced one after the other. So when someone is doing something different in that class, everyone feels it. And it is really disturbing. It throws off the balance. It does. Especially if you're doing balance poses. Yes. So if someone's kind of being, I don't know, they're new, it's usually someone who
practices another style of rigorous yoga, and believes that their way is better than this way. And so they want to do theirs. And that's kind of when I just put a little pink bubble around them.
Nice.
And then I try to find an opportunity to talk to them after class too about what this is.
Yeah.
You know, this way that you do it in that lineage of yoga has a specific purpose here. We do it this way here because, you know, we're linking this move to this move and it does this, and that's why we do it this way. It doesn't mean one lineage is wrong. They all operate within that system. So when you come to this class, this is what we do.
Right. Yeah.
We're foxtrotting here.
Right.
We're not doing square dance.
So so before we get going more into more of like the teaching and that, I was just wondering, kind of back to your yoga journey. So you went from a Bikram yoga, which
to
my
years.
experience, there's not too much verbal in Bikram as a student, right? As a student, you're not doing too many sounds with the mouth.
No,
but you're doing exhaling. But so then you went to Kundalini, which there's a lot of vocal.
Yeah.
So how did you bridge how have you gotten from Bikram and then found Kundalini?
They're actually very similar in some ways. And just remember, like, for many years, I did do Vinyasa, like, you know, Iyengar-based yoga, and I did learn other mantras. I had that first teacher training where we did do other mantras. I've always loved that. The Bikram yoga is like you keep your eyes open the entire time during class. There's always one specific place to focus your eyes. You're always using your eyes. And there's a whole idea behind that, you know, the optical nerves attaching to the spine and how it affects your brain and the way your spine moves. And keeping a presence in the room. It's more about getting outside of yourself and being right here. It is definitely a discipline. Kundalini yoga, then, to me, I'm going to backtrack a little bit. I feel like that 26-2 series, the Bikram, which is Ghosh yoga, actually, that 26-2 series was developed from Ghosh yoga as a series for beginners to help balance their energy centers. And really creating a beautiful, healthy, strong physical container to prepare you for higher yoga. So I didn't have I didn't have support from Ghosh yoga community here. There's very little Ghosh yoga in this country. I needed something more. You can do that beginner series for your whole life if you want to, but I needed more.
And that's those 26 poses.
26 poses, 2 breathing exercises.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was like a huge stabilizing force in my body, you know, and like I said, I had done years and years of other styles of yoga, but for me, I really needed to just practice that one thing. I practiced just that yoga for about 5 or 6 years, just that, nothing else. And then I was ready. I was like, I need to do something else too. And I had off and on practiced Kundalini yoga, and I was always like, this yoga is super weird. But I always felt drawn to it. I did need to start using my voice more. There are similarities in the actions of it. The way that we do spinal flexion, there's a lot in waking up the energy in the spine. Kundalini yoga always uses eye gaze, but it's usually you close your eyes. So it's like there's the one practice where you're intentionally focusing outside of yourself, and this one you're focusing inward. If you're not, then you're looking at the tip of your nose, or your eyes are closed, you're gazing down at your chin or up through the crown of your head or somewhere out on the floor. But there's always, you know, that eye gaze that you're using. And again, it's very structured. I guess I need structure. There are definitely moments of free flow movement within Kundalini Kriyas. I just taught one last night where we danced for 11 minutes.
Oh my God.
So we turned up the music, turned down the lights, had the candles on, and that was part of the Kriya. And we danced.
Oh, wow.
And Kriya, again, is a specific set of actions to create a single intention, or, you know, a multi-pronged intention. So a kriya can also be one action. That cat-cow is a kriya. We call, that really is one thing do. That one, ego eradicator, that's a kriya in and of itself. I also think of the Bikram yoga sequence 26-2. It is a kriya. You do this same thing every time for a specific purpose. Could you consider the Ashtanga Vinyasa set sequences kriyas? I think so. I mean, they're a set sequence and they have a specific purpose every time, and they create a specific energy. So I think they could kind of fall within that. They're just more physical kriyas. A lot of kriya yoga tends to be internal, so it's a lot of meditation. Like you're using different focus with your mind and your breath.
And that's the Kundalini is more of
Kundalini is based in Kriya yoga, definitely, but it is a more physical Kriya yoga. Well, no, a lot of it is and a lot of it isn't.
Yeah.
There's a lot of meditations as well. There's a lot of internal Kriyas as well. And there are other styles of Kundalini yoga. The style that I was attracted to was as taught by Yogi Bhajan. So like Sri Ravi Shankar, he teaches Kriya Yoga. I mean, there are many schools. The Bihar school in India teaches Kriya Yoga. Yogi Bhajan studied there as well. Yeah, it's just, there are a lot of...
So they grew their own branches from that limb of Kundalini Kriya Yoga. In a way.
Who's to say where it all comes from?
I know.
Where did it specifically start? The Indus Valley civilization in ancient India. Some say some of those philosophical teachings came from Egypt first and then implanted themselves in the Indus Valley. So it's hard to say exactly where it all branched out from, but that's kind of where people think it did. But then you have regions, and people, these teachers, these master yogis, developing their own flavor, depending on region. Like Yogi Bhajan says, where our yoga is, and for some reason I have a little blank in my head where, I don't know why, Punjab region, it's a little cooler there. So food is spicier, we move more, we move faster, we use our voice. We do a lot of mantras, a lot of energy in it. Whereas
need more heat.
Need more just to get the body moving. And then, but what's interesting with the Ghosh yoga that Bikram came from, that area is in Kolkata, and it's hot there. The yoga's slower. It's a lot slower, so there's more static holds of these postures. Interestingly, though, in the Ghosh school, they have their therapeutic yoga, and there is more movement in the therapeutic yoga. It's very similar to the Kundalini Kriyas. Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah, that is. And
It's
did you just start
fascinating.
making those connections, like since you've been over your years of being in Kundalini?
Just all over the years, entirely. Every time I look at a different regional, type of yoga or, system of yoga, there are similarities, and then there are huge differences. And I think that's where, you see people who study a lineage and they look at other lineages and they're like, that's wrong, that's not the way to do it. And it's not true, there are many ways of doing it, and people find what resonates with them. And when I tell people, I'm so happy that you found something that resonates for you. It may not be for everyone, and that's okay. I mean, and I love the enthusiasm people get about their yoga.
Yeah, so there's a lot of passion.
Oh yeah. They're like, this is the best way. Well, for you it is. Yay, that's awesome.
Yeah, it is.
I've had to kind of shift, and again, maybe with the Ghosh yoga, if there was a school that carried the teachings further in this area, I could have gone further with that, but I needed to do more. And Kundalini yoga definitely has vast information out there. There are many Kundalini yoga teachers. So I was able to take it further with that. Yeah. And I did realize I love working with energy. I love working with mantra. I love working with sets of postures, things that might be a little not necessarily focused on the acrobatics of yoga. I think I was intimidated by Ashtanga yoga because what I got when I practiced it was like, you're not good, or you can't progress to the next level unless you master these postures, if you're not flexible, which I know is not true. But in certain, the Ashtanga at the time that I was seeing, it was like that, and I didn't feel like I was good enough. It was like, I felt really super intimidated. It might have been good for me to have gone through that, but at the same time, my body was hurting when I did it too.
It was almost telling you something.
Yeah, it was just like, no, you have a different path, which has been really inspiring for me in a sense, because I've been able to bring yoga that I don't think everyone does. Like the US has tons of vinyasa yoga. It's, we have lots of Krishnamacharya based yoga here, vinyasa yoga, Iyengar, Ashtanga. And then also that series, the Ghosh Yoga Beginning Series 26-2, like I saw how incredible it was, but I also saw it being taught with not as much care that I thought it could be taught with. So it was like a challenge for me to bring that into it as well.
Bring intention, or just bring a practice that's helps the students understand it, but with more integrity and
rather than do it because I said so and lock your knee and everyone's knees are super hyperextended.
Maybe you could clarify like a side note on what the lock your knees in that series means.
Well, so in yoga, there are things called bandhas, and they are related to as locks or bridges, a way to move energy. And I think of that as a bandha. Your leg is straight, but it doesn't mean the knee is pushed back. You kind of want to have that, optimal ankle, knee, hip joints lined up. And then, you start with really getting your foot connected to the earth. So you align your foot, you make sure you have proper alignment in your foot. Your inner arches engaged, you've got to lift through the ankle, you've got the muscles of your thigh. So that's huge. And it's why it was so healing for me, because I had chronically weak legs. So getting all of the quadriceps engaged and your hamstrings. So all the muscles on the thigh, like you want to develop that strength, like everything here. And when you work that, it actually, when you do it correctly, it heals your knees. It makes your knees strong.
So that's the locking. It's more like engage from the pada bandha or foot bandha up the leg, up the calf, and then the hamstring and the quads. They all just kind of connect around that knee.
Yep, and they all. And then there's that concept of like lifting through the joints. You're not falling down in them. So whenever you see someone with a hyperextended knee, they're not connecting that drying up of energy.
Up,
I mean, it's like, to me, I see it as just like getting stopped there. It's cutting it off. And then you carry it all the way up into the low belly, into the navel point, so your buttock on the leg with your locked knee is also your glutes are also going to be engaged. The whole thing is solid.
To strengthen the hip too. 'Cause that's my weak parts my right hip. I've been finding, I'm working on doing my own at-home practice where I'm just strengthening my hips, my glutes, and my hamstrings. Because I just have this right hip that's just it's from just not having enough strength there, just more stretch. So
I've practiced locking my knee with one hand on a counter, and then, just lifting the other leg up a little bit so I could isolate one leg at a time. And I've done that a lot at home. But it took me 3 years before I could sort of kind of get that concept in my leg, because it took me a while to even build that strength there to do it. So that's one of the big issues with that series of yoga, and
just the misunderstanding of the cue,
and a lot of people that teach it don't understand it either, and they cue to hyperextend your knee, which was so vindicating. So I had people from Ghosh College, India. They came here last year.
Oh, yeah, you were telling me about
that. And Scott and Ida, and the lock the knee came up, and Scott said, a hyperextended knee is never a good knee. that's not what we're trying to teach here, you know. So it kind of got off the aspect of this hyperextension of the joints and that being okay was more acceptable in the branch where they went into yoga competition. So they were judging the postures, and that was more acceptable than somebody bending a knee or a joint. So they would go for that.
The hyperextension?
Oh yeah. Wow. It wasn't about health. It was about going as far as you could.
Are there still yoga competitions like that?
Oh yeah, there's still yoga competitions. Yeah, but that's where it branches off.
Yeah.
And Bikram was much more into that side when he came to the U.S. And he called it Bikram Yoga, and he did not. I mean, he says that he invented this series. He did not. This series was being taught before he was alive, and it was being taught in Calcutta, a school in Japan where he was sent by his teacher Vishnu Ghosh to go study. And, you know, of course, instructed by Vishnu Ghosh to share this series with the world because it did help Bikram a lot. But he called it Bikram Yoga, and that's kind of like this whole integrity thing in yoga. Like, you know, you should give honor to the people who trained you, and you shouldn't say it's yours unless you make it yours. And he was teaching the Ghosh Yoga, and he said it's Bikram Yoga. It's not, it's Ghosh Yoga. And there's a lot more to it.
Yeah. Do you think there will ever be a name change to Ghosh Yoga?
I tried, but, you know, I do still have Bikram on there in the description because otherwise nobody knows what it is.
Right. Yeah.
So I put Bikram Ghosh.
I saw that. Yeah, you made that update just kind of recently, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I personally, I really would like to just have it be called Ghosh Inspired. You know, I'm not trained by Ghosh school,
right.
So I can't say that this is Ghosh Yoga. I have it in parentheses, Bikram Ghosh
Because you
style.
were trained through the Bikram style.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can't say that unless I, you know, go to India, which is what you have to do. You've got to go to India and study there to get certified in Ghosh Yoga.
Ghosh
Yeah.
Yoga.
Yeah. But it was so wonderful to have them come. They're going to come again this coming January.
Oh.
And do several more workshops on that yoga.
Really? When in January?
The 27th, I believe, the weekend of the 27th.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, I mean...
Do they do workshops, or is it more...
It's workshops.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll have multiple. They're going to do a series of 5 workshops here over a weekend. Yeah, it's wonderful. And their methods are so interesting. And some of it... What I love about it is it's like different than what you learn in Krishnamacharya or alignment-based yoga, the way that they tell you to do some things, especially back bends. It's quite different. And it's sort of one of those, what? No. But then you do it and you're like, oh, this actually works within the system. It works. Okay.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I got to go to that. That's going to be neat.
It's really interesting. Yeah. And you'll like them. They're definitely, you know, they're different than what you think of as like Bikram yoga, where it's really militant and Scott's pretty minimalistic with his words. He's serious, you know, just kind of a serious.
Serious, like
yeah.
Question?
But yeah, it was really nice to finally connect with more of that lineage.
How did you connect with them?
Got a hold of them online.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and they have been coming and doing workshops around the country. They studied in India. I think they're from Indiana.
Oh, okay.
I think somewhere. So yeah, they've been, you know, the biggest spreaders of Ghosh yoga in the States.
That's neat.
Yeah, and there will be more of it. It's just, you know, especially with the whole thing that happened with Bikram, and it's just, I have to remember to have gratitude for him, though, because if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have done this yoga at all, and he did bring it here. It's unfortunate that he, you know, to me, he was so insecure that he couldn't be honest about the roots or, you know, overall completely with how he just, I felt like it was huge insecurity in some ways, and he felt like he had to completely control all aspects, you know, with the yoga and with trying to copyright it. He was so afraid of people stealing his yoga, and it just devolved more and more to where he just treated people so badly. So lesson to learn with power in yoga.
You know, that actually might be good for for a question for teachers is what is like one tip that you would give to new teachers, and
one
or like one or two like practical kind of things that teachers should, that you would suggest? Or
well, I mean, one, everyone's different. So some teachers want to teach a lot. They want to make yoga teaching a big part of their life.
mm-hmm.
So that would be teach a lot. Just teach a lot. It's really the best way to learn. Teach what you know. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to be an expert at everything. Just teach what you know and keep learning. A 200-hour certification is just the beginning. When I did my first 200-hour certification, the Yoga Shala, I actually wasn't really ready to teach from that.
Mm-hmm.
I had to do another training, and then, I was trained to specifically teach a certain style, which was helpful for me
mm-hmm.
Because it gave me structure to go from and how to teach a specific style.
Mm-hmm. Like how to sequence a proper class.
Yeah, and I was trained to just teach that sequence.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did do a private training with Rhea for Vinyasa Baptiste yoga, which was wonderful, just learning how to teach flowing with breath, and there were definitely options for sequencing within that. And that was nice to do, because then I was able to bring back all my knowledge of all this other yoga I had studied for years, and bring my alignment teachings into
mm-hmm.
that. And then, I've been studying with Kia Miller now, who is kind of a fusion artist herself. And really, because I've studied so many styles of yoga, after just staying with that one style that I taught for years, I realized I want to find ways to, fuse some things or bring what I know all together in a class while still having integrity, because that's hard. You can lump all kinds of things together and call it a yoga class, and often I don't think people know what they're doing when they do that. So with Kia, she's a master teacher, and she has also studied many styles of yoga. She's certified Ashtanga teacher as well, so it's nice to get some of that old flavor back in there. But basically learning how to sequence the classes where you keep the integrity of these styles and knowledge together, so you are more effective in your classes. I mean, really, again, if you just lump stuff together, it's not going to be effective.
Mm-hmm. Right, you have to keep it in the family in a way, because then you will get that energy, or you'll get that, you'll get what you need out of it, because it's put all together in that sequence for a reason.
Yeah. And, even so, there are going to be those in the yoga community that don't like that at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like with Kia, she's been a long time Kundalini student, teacher, she continues to study with Guru Singh, who is huge in the Kundalini yoga community. He's still her teacher, and Guru Charan as well. And so she's had a lot of help with them.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, really, we talk about what are we doing with our energy in these yoga sequences, like Hatha yoga, which is a lot of what we do, Krishnamacharya based, Iyengar, Ashtanga, Vinyasa, that's Hatha yoga. So what do we do with the Hatha yoga? Hatha yoga is really good for the lower 3 energy centers in your body. It helps you get connected to your body. Mm-hmm. It's really good for creating a strong, healthy body, just like the Ghosh Bikram sequence. It's the same sort of thing. So you want to create a nice, strong container. And then with Kundalini yoga then goes a little deeper with really intentionally moving that energy. So you're getting a little deeper into those subtle layers. But if you're trying to do Kundalini Kriyas, like most of us in the Western world, our containers are not really strong enough for it.
Or ready to receive
it. So it's like you're basically running a 10,000 watt stream of energy through a 50 watt container. And so there have been experiences with people, going into deep into Kundalini yoga practice, and they're not connected to their bodies, and it can create some difficulty for them. That's where you kind of hear about, Kundalini awakening that's not so happy or not so good,
Okay.
And so we try to be pretty careful about it. I know you asked me earlier, like, where can someone start with their practice in order to help balance these energies? And this is, my teacher Kia says, start with the third chakra, really. Like, focus on the third chakra.
Solar plexus.
Yeah, focus on your solar plexus, because it does create that strong container. It helps create that ability to transform, so you're still, any kriya or activity that involves working with the solar plexus, you're going to get the, second chakra, root chakra too. You're still working with the lower centers. And then you're working with the lower prana energy, so the apana energy, and then you're taking the prana heart center energy, and you're mixing it in the center. You're taking that, that samana energy, and you're really mixing it so that you can create a nice flow of energy through your body. So yeah, Kia says work with the Manipura.
So how would she suggest, or how do you go about doing that? Like, just doing more of the hatha-based practice, or?
Well, hatha yoga really helps. Hatha yoga, especially all the standing yoga. So whenever I teach a Kundalini Kriya, we always do, sun salutations and standing postures. That's really as far as it goes as a warm-up, because we're trying to get that container ready.
Okay.
What was your question?
Well, what's suggested then to warm up or get the solar plexus engaged?
Right. So in Kundalini yoga, we do breath of fire.
Right.
Ego eradicator, or breath of fire. Abdominal exercises. There are a lot of yogic abdominal exercises. They're really nice to do actually at the beginning of a practice, just to get you nice and warm. But again, those sun salutations, those standing postures, all of those do get they get the core. They involve your pelvic floor, your hips, your thighs, your low belly. They get it basically. The core. Your core is not just your stomach muscles. It's that whole.
It's like it's like a wrap.
Yeah,
and then there's
back.
stuff under that.
Oh yeah, your hip flexors, your glutes really are part of your core. And I've heard that, some teachers say also your thighs are part of it, and your pelvic floor. So big, and breathing exercises. So when you're working with your diaphragm, that's essentially how you create more flexibility within your body. If your diaphragm is tight, you're going to be tight.
I just went to that training with Jason Crandall I was telling you about, and he was talking about how the core and the solar plexus, that's a place to distribute. It's a stress distributor. So if that is engaged, if that's warmed, then when you go into the asana practice further, you are able to better distribute the stress and poses. Yeah. So that was kind of, I just kind of thought of that as us being something that once the core is engaged, even if your core is not a six-pack, it can be like whatever it is.
Surface stuff.
Yeah, it is. So once that's warm though, your distribution of energy, distribution of stress and postures can better flow throughout the whole body. So the whole body's engaged, not just that one hamstring.
Right. If you're not in touch with your center, then it's going to be hard to be safely aligned in other things, But getting in touch with your center takes time to really learn that as well, and other simple exercises. Actually, cat-cow is really, really good for your core. That spinal flexion. You're contracting on the exhale, you're stretching on the inhale, and really working with that solar center and cat-cow. So I always do cat-cows. That's my favorite thing to start with. Yeah, we do cat-cows, we do ego eradicator, we do cat-cows, we do, some dynamic twisting, because that gets into the center as well.
Yeah, and it shows you where you twist, which is the thoracic spine. Yeah. 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 The other day, I teach at REI, and it's been really fun to do, because it's just been awesome. It's a new community connecting with these people, and I love it because I bring more practical elements to it. Like when you're hiking instead of stepping through the floor, think about like engaging the whole leg.
Yeah.
So it's been really cool because they can practically apply what we're doing. But we were doing cat-cow, and I don't know what came over me. Maybe it was just the vibe of the class, but I went like, moo.
Yeah.
And everyone started laughing, and we did it we did one together. It was just like super fun, but I know I love cat-cow
Laughing
too.
engages your solar center
Yes, it
too.
does, yeah. Okay.
We did a Kriya last week where we had to belly laugh for 3 minutes. Everyone's stomachs were so tired.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, those are so. You start off fake laughing.
Oh yeah, you have to fake laugh at first.
And then eventually everyone is just laughing because it's so silly.
Well, a lot of this stuff in these Kriyas that I teach, it's like I can just tell half the time people are like, what is this lady doing?
This is so silly. So
Well,
you
it's super
describe
silly.
like what you're doing though, right? You have your translations on the sheet.
I do, and
Yeah.
I teach the Kriyas. I don't make up my own Kriyas. I teach the Kriyas, the sets as they are, and I teach them as they're supposed to be taught. And so I tell people, what they are and what we're doing.
And the purpose, the end purpose.
The purpose, yeah. And I will create my own sequencing for warm-ups, which is really fun to do before. But, there's still a lot of creativity within teaching those sets. You can focus on different aspects of the Kriya and talk about it and teach to that. Then you can always, there's always like, okay, which meditation or mantra are we going to add at the end of this set? So you can still craft a whole experience within that realm of that, just teaching that Kriya. It's not, okay, I'm going to teach this Kriya and this is the way it's supposed to be and I'm not going to change anything. You can still be really, really creative with it.
So kind of not even about like the Kriya. So why do Kundalini teachers wear white when they teach?
Okay, so Kundalini yoga has a lot of ritualistic aspects to it. And Yogi Bhajan was a Sikh, so he also did bring in some Sikh practices as well. And I don't think that the white thing was necessarily that. But white is said to contain all color. White magnifies your electromagnetic field. So it is, he just talks about it as color therapy.
Okay.
So you're doing this because it's really, really helpful for your energy. To wear white is helpful for your energy. They want teachers to wear white because then they have a more solid electromagnetic field. Therefore, they're able to carry the space and the teachings more clearly and effectively. And really, there has been research done on color therapy. It does have an effect on our energy. And everyone has an electromagnetic field, and they do know that. So, we call that our aura. But and Yogi Bhajan's mathematical reasons, he's like, it expands your aura by, what do you say, like 2 feet?
Oh, wow.
I'm not sure if it really does that. Apparently he could see stuff like that. But, that being said, as someone who never wore white, that was hard. It took me a while to get to where I
And probably to remember too, because if you don't always wear it and then you remember, it might be nice now though because it's almost like a uniform.
Well, it is a uniform.
You don't have to really think. And I also, when I see you in that, I do just see you as the teacher holding the space. It's like you're not even you anymore. You're just that. You're just teaching what your teachers have taught you and their teachers have taught them. So it does kind of set that, as a student, it does set that separation and trust in
it
the
takes
process.
Any personal anxiety I might have about myself off the plate. Because that's just, I am putting on my uniform, I am the teacher, I'm here to convey these teachings. It's not about me or my insecurities. I'm here to share this with other people, as was shared by my teachers as well.
How do you keep a sustainable yoga teaching practice?
Right.
And then also, how do you not get tired? And how do you, so 3 in 1. And then how do you also just stay fresh or so that you don't, so that you can bring your best self to that space?
Well, and I described to you before this interview that we're recording, that I'm actually going through a little bit of taking a break from my practice, just because I've had a lot come up for me, and I'm just sitting with self-observance. So I do feel like I'm still practicing. There's a lot of self-observance in there. I've been learning a lot about myself doing this. I do need to get back to my physical practice though, because I can feel it. I mean, right now I'm just doing it a couple times a week, so I can make sure I've got my classes I'm teaching down right, and I can share that experience. But really, essentially, and also there may be a little resistance there for me. I've always been able to set the times I want to practice, but my life has gotten so busy that really the only times I can get up and practice are 4 something in the morning, and which is hilarious because that's what the yoga teachings say. They say you should practice at this time.
Yeah. You're going to get that on the schedule next year, right? 4 a.m.
Yes, I finally put myself in the position where I have to adhere to that. So it's sort of just sitting with me and who I am and my mind stuff and my blocks that I have with things and energetically. And it's funny because I'm like, oh yeah, I can see how this is affecting me energetically. I will have to start doing, I'm going to take will have to out of that. That's why I've been probably sitting back and observing, because I don't want to feel like I have to do this. This is because I love it. Why am I doing this if I have to do it? So I'm being put in this position to step it up, because this is what I love and this is what I share. So it's not that I have to, I will be choosing to do this. And I guess maybe just taking this little time of observance and watching what's happened. And during this time I've gotten sick and couldn't practice anyway. So did I get sick because I wasn't practicing? I don't know.
Like what came first, the chicken or the egg?
I don't know. And then in terms of keeping it fresh, you gotta at least get on the mat and play with your routines and sequencing, and play with those, like for me, those kriyas. And what's fun for me is there are thousands of kriyas.
Yeah.
So when I spent so many years as teaching that 26-2 sequence, I learned to just be patient. And today I don't feel like teaching this, but I have to teach it. I am working here. I've signed up to do this, so I'm going to teach it. I don't feel like it. It taught me how to deal with that relationship aspect of doing this thing I love when I don't always want to do it. But now, like bringing in the Kundalini kriyas and adding that to my teaching, I have like unlimited opportunities to teach all kinds of cool things.
Right.
So it's really fun.
Yeah.
It's really, really fun for me. And maybe that's why I also like to bring in stuff that's different, that you wouldn't get in a usual like yoga class.
Right.
Like Ara had us run in place and punch.
And dance.
And then she had us dance this other, and then she had us like do belly laughing, and then this one class we like did shoulder stand and kicked our butts,
Oh, cool.
And a lot of it's kind of funny and it's hilarious. So you're just like, you can't like take yourself too seriously. And that again, back to I think I touched on I'm reweaving some of my explanations, the more athletic types of yoga where I felt like there was a lot of focus on body athleticism, and that is, the more, adept you are at this posture, the better yogi you are, sort of mentality. I was intimidated by the physicalness of it. But B, I didn't want to just go into that. So I think I have chosen other things that are about more than that. It's about, meeting yourself. Why did I do that darn hot yoga thing, every day for years and years? Because it taught me so much about myself. And that is a largely physical practice, but what people don't know is there's a lot more to it than that.
Yeah.
It's not just physical. And what I love about it is that it's for everyone, and you can have a beautiful practice and never lock your knee or never kick out and standing separate.
Right.
Like,
it's quite simple. It's very Bikram simple. That's what I started with, was Bikram, and what I really liked about it too is that it did eventually move past the physical for me, because actually you kind of just had to because it was so hot in the room.
Yeah, I know.
So you're in your head a lot. And so, but then eventually you kind of find a way to come out of, it's so hot in here, I hate my teacher, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Why are you telling me to do that side again? You already did it.
Yeah.
So you move past that. It kind of gives you distractions.
Yeah.
And then those distractions start moving you into like your breath.
Yep.
Move you into that focus, that eye focus you're talking about. And that was for me what I've experienced with Bikram is I found a meditation. I found my ability to sink in to what I was doing and really focus on something for a solid hour. Like no distractions. Like the focus was like what I was doing.
I will have to say the main thing about that practice, showing up, staying focused and listening. Mm-hmm. It's a listening exercise. And that's huge, to actually really listen to what the teacher is saying. That takes a lot. And really that goes back as well to people that come into your class and are doing their own thing. They actually don't know how to listen. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't know how to listen. And that's a really beginning aspect of yoga practice, is to learn how to pay attention to what's happening around you and be involved in that, mm-hmm. Rather than just being in the stories in your own head over and over and over again.
Or like, I know it's going to come next, run down dog. Of course, we're going to go to the top of the mat. So you go to the top of the mat, So it does kind of, again, it puts you into that student mentality, and mm-hmm. it feels good to be a student.
It does. I really love it.
It just takes time to like, what would you suggest for people who do practice yoga and they are students of yoga, but they do find themselves like jumping ahead because they know mm-hmm. what's to come?
Yeah, and that's part of that. Again, that was one of the things in the Bikram Ghosh series, is that's why it's the beginning practice, because you don't jump ahead. And as a teacher, I'm supposed to tell people, wait for me, stay with me, stay with me.
Okay.
And if you do it, if you get it, you get that. It's so nice. You can just go in there and then move with the cues. You're not having to anticipate or move ahead. It is that meditation, and we all move together. Mm-hmm. And you notice when you start like doing it ahead of the teacher, you feel it. You're like, oh, I wasn't paying attention. Oh, here I am, back to being present in this room with my eyes open, focused on one point, and I'm being present. Mm-hmm. And that's really, I feel like it is such a good brain exercise for people. How it's presented as militant, and mm-hmm. It makes it's really loaded when you approach people that way as militant. It makes people not see the advantages and benefits of it, unless you really love, like, you thrive in military environment. I mean, but not everyone goes to that. That's why a lot of people have chosen not to do that yoga, because of the attitude that goes with it. So I try my best to explain to people why we do it this way. Mm-hmm. It's really helpful for your brain. It's really helpful for your whole well-being. And I'm not just doing this because I'm trying to be a control freak. This is a method that we're practicing here.
And it comes from healing. Like most yoga teachers that I've met, it's a healing. We're giving a part. We're in that room because we want to support you to just heal, and not saying that not saying like you're hurt and you need to heal, but it's just like you're coming from that place of love and kindness and really devotion to the practice and just sharing it. So
and I think when I'm able to convey that to someone who doesn't want to do the routine and they came to show up anyway mm-hmm. and do it, I think once they understand that, then they much more wholeheartedly want to do it that way. People do get resistance built up to authority. It's really hard to just go along with because I said so sort of thing. We've all got trauma and wounds there. And when you're in a hot room and you've got someone coming at you like that, it's huge. All of your stuff will come up. I have literally felt the anger vibrations in that room when I've taught. Like, people get so mad.
I'm sure you have.
They get so angry.
That must be creepy. What does it feel like?
I feel it, and then
is it like like, is it a pounding vibration?
Yeah.
Or is it like a
It is. It's really
wave,
low level.
Okay.
Like, ooh. So that's when I do speak to, you know, asking people, you know, making them curious about what their thoughts are right now. You know, pay attention to your thoughts, and then bring that into your breath. You know, and it's always usually for me is just coming back to, you know, your breath and the quality of your breath, and notice if you are allowing your thoughts to take you away from your breath. And that usually creates a big change for people. I have really stupid yoga jokes too. Like sometimes I tend to be a pretty serious teacher, but every so often I'll bring in like these idiotic yoga jokes, and that helps, you know, to get people to laugh.
Yeah.
You know, you got to get people to laugh, especially in that. And then, you know, people are different constitutionally. That yoga, I think, is really good for creating a shift and a transformation. So let's say you do it every day for 60 days. You're trying to create something in your life, create some new patterns. Do that. There aren't a lot of people that can consistently do it for years and years and years and make that only their practice based on their personal constitution. So I think of it as a health-giving practice. Do it twice a week and do other yoga if yoga is your practice. You know, that's kind of just that little health pill. You know, that little health
like
pill.
the vitamin that you might take.
Yeah, and it may not necessarily be your favoritist one. It's kind of like, you know, then give yourself a lot of sugar.
Shot.
Yeah, you never regret it. After you're done, you never regret it. You
I
always
feel a
amazing.
sense of like I'm really proud of myself. Like I followed through.
Yeah,
because it's
hard.
It's really hard. I went to a Bikram class the other day with one of my good friends, and I just about threw up on my mat. Like I was about to like pass out. I was, and I just paused.
Yeah.
Because something that I would like, that I see and what I encourage as a teacher is encouraging students just to, it's okay just to lay down.
Yes.
It's
and
okay
I say that
just
all
to
the
take
time.
a break and just do what you need to do for self-care. And in a way, you still do receive the benefits because you're in that room, you're getting the energy.
You receive all the benefits.
Yeah.
You receive so much of the benefit of your practice if you allow yourself to stop and rest and stay in your meditation.
Yeah.
What I've experienced a lot, because we're such a goal-oriented society, is people leaving. Oh, I can't do it the way I expect myself to do it, so I can't do my yoga practice now and I'm going to leave. And it's really when you come to the place of honoring your commitment to your yoga practice and you just stay there and you rest and breathe for a while. Also, the concept of pacing yourself, especially in that class, takes time. Like I can know right away, like within like the first 10, 15 minutes, if I need to pace myself better. Like, oh, I'm gonna choose to go to the first part of each posture and just focus on my breath, and I'm not going to go farther than that, because I know if I do, then I'm going to end up laying down on the floor. And I would rather just keep going and be super
keep
light.
Your knee to chest instead of bringing the heel out.
Yeah, or even, and in standing bow, I don't even bring my body down. I'll just stay upright.
Cool.
All of that. So I'm not like really, getting my heartbeat going as high, because maybe my body at that time can't handle it. It's trying to deal with other things.
Yeah.
And I love doing that. You can make that practice actually pretty nurturing and healing and soft if you do that. You just do like the little bit, just each one a little bit. And I'm going to be super mellow with myself. Another aspect to the way that the yoga is taught in the States, and this is something I felt intuitively after having been in a studio that was insanely hot, to the point, it was like, regularly 115 degrees, being the teacher standing up on the podium. And a lot of the studios are really, really hot, and it's just been this thing, hot is better. Bikram says, 100, he would say 102 to 105. Well, most studios are a lot hotter than that. And the Ghost Yoga people, they are like, no, it doesn't need to be that hot, you guys. Mine is 95 to 98. I do like the heat, but I don't make it hotter than that. I don't think it should be above body temperature.
Well, no, because then you start tapping into like other parts of you that you need to take care of.
Right.
If it's
then
really,
it's
really
too
hot, you're like,
That's not healthy.
Yeah, you start to get like feeling, your students start to hit another part of themselves they have to take care of.
And that goes to the denial of self. That's the opposite of what you're trying to do in yoga. And I've seen over the years so many people deal with heat-related issues that were not okay. Throwing up, fainting, heat stroke, all the time I would see that. So I was like, it is not going to be above body temperature here. And I tell you what, I very rarely ever have anyone have an issue. I always address if you're not used to the heat, or if you're having a day where you might be dealing with something in your system emotionally or physically, and you do feel a little bit off or dizzy, please don't push through it. Just stop and rest. I don't encourage people to push through stuff like that. It is not safe at all.
I know. I've experienced your studio, and then I've experienced other Bikram or 26 series studios that had a tolerated heat. And then when you start to go more on the floor, the heat does eventually start to taper out. But yeah, this last class I did, I was just like, this is it was just unbearable.
It was like way too hot.
Almost like humid too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was too hot. It was the hottest I've ever done it. And I was like, this is Anyway, so all right, well, so just a few last things. How do you know the difference between trying to please your students and trying to challenge your students? Because in yoga, and especially since you own a studio, which we haven't even talked about, it's like a different thing, a different podcast. So what there is a customer service side. There is a side of that. So how do you deal with that? Or do you have any tips or tools that you use?
I guess for me, because I've had this is part of my personality. There are certain people that are pleasers, and that's something that's always been a huge aspect for me. There are pluses to it and huge minuses to it. And then stepping into running this type of business, it stressed me out a lot, because I would try to overly please people, or try to make, everything, what everyone would want. And I really had to come back to this place of that I'm not going to please everyone, that I teach what I know, and the people that want that will come to that. Because if I'm constantly trying to make it universally liked by everyone, I'm not really going to find people that are hungry for what I have to offer. And the people that don't like it aren't going to come to my class. That's why I have so this is my way of, addressing that. I have many styles of yoga. I love all styles of yoga here at the studio. There are people that will not come to my class, but they will come to other people's classes because they like what that teacher has to offer, that style that they have to offer, and that's okay, And there is that part, you want people to like your class, But I have to I've had to learn that not everyone is going to like the yoga that I offer. That is what it is, Not everyone is that type of personality that's going to want it. And there's a little bit of an aspect to, and I don't want this to sound harsh, but teach your class like you don't care if people come back. And I don't mean it to be like, you're being a complete egomaniac as a teacher and a jerk and you're rude to people. Do your job. Share what you love from your heart. Be your absolute best, but don't come from it at the angle that you're trying to get people to come back. Okay? That's
just
it.
Be your authentic self.
Be your authentic self. It's not about trying to get people to come back to your class. And I guarantee the more a teacher does that, they're going to find people that want to keep coming back to their class.
And they'll be able to create that student-teacher relationship more and support their student's journey.
And it allows you as a teacher to be more honest about you. This is the way that I do it. I can recommend somebody else for this type of knowledge rather than, okay, I need to be everything for everybody all the time.
Right, That's exhausting. And
it's exhausting.
And then you also stop, and then what we're doing then is is we're not connecting to our gut and our intuition when we do move according to what we think we should be doing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you get spread too thin, you start losing that touch with your center.
Right, and
Yeah.
honoring you, and then honoring your students too.
Mm-hmm.
And if you see that someone needs something that you don't offer, then by all means give them access to someone else.
Yeah.
Because they're going to be better off, and it'll make room for someone in your classes that will benefit more from you. I mean, when people come to me and they're like, I really want to learn Ashtanga yoga, you know, and I really want to do that, you know, and I have to tell them we have like 2 Ashtanga classes here a week. They're more experimental ones. They're not straight on Ashtanga. So if you're someone that likes to dabble, this is a beautiful place to come to. But if you really want to learn Ashtanga yoga, you better go see Shelly up there, because she's the one that does that. That's her thing.
Yeah.
You know, and I actually get I get emails often from people asking that. I'm like, go see her. She's the Ashtanga teacher, you know.
Right, go
you know,
to Shelly.
Yeah, go see her. If you want to learn Ashtanga, go see her. I mean, but if you want to come to a place that offers a variety, you don't feel like you need to adhere to like one specific style per se. You feel like some days you need yin yoga, some days you need a more vigorous style. You know, you can do that here. We do offer enough of some styles where if your thing is, you know, vinyasa yoga, you get plenty of it here.
Yeah.
You get plenty of hot yoga. You have the 26-2 series every day. The Kundalini practice, for people, we don't offer it every day, but I will give students home practices to do if they want to come here and then, you know, go home and practice at home. Because in Kundalini yoga, again, you can give people a specific kriya to practice and do a discipline of that for 40 days and, you know, see how that works for you, and then come here and learn from me. You know, and again, you know, at some point maybe we'll have those classes every day. Yeah, we'll see.
Well, after this training that you do, maybe you'll have more Kundi teachers.
Yeah, we'll have more teachers. And again, and I approach it from the style of Kia Miller, which is her radiant body style, which is we do use some of the Hatha yoga to warm the body up. And I don't require as much as KRI, which is a Kundalini Research Institute, their specific trainings. I don't tell the teachers that they have to wear turbans. I do encourage them to wear white just because of the color therapy. Do you have to all the time? Oh, my white clothes are dirty. Fine, you know, but, you know, think about it. My way is more of a growing through self and seeing the benefits of how that works for you. I don't always wear white when I teach Kundalini yoga, you know, just sometimes I'm like, no, I feel like wearing this outfit, you know, but I do often cover my head and wear white because it feels good and feels right to me. Yeah, but it really is just a slight difference on like more the traditional Kundalini teacher trainings. We do incorporate and learn about other yoga as well. Because I want people to see the connection.
Right, yeah, exactly. And it also helps to expand the worldview of yoga too.
Yes.
So you can see that it's all from kind of that same center.
Yes.
The Yoga Sutras.
And I will say
the Kriyas,
that Yogi Bhajan actually said, you know, and there are like some they're the old school, they're, you know, in any lineage of yoga, they're the old school people, you know, we do it this way, we don't, you know, do anything else. But Yogi Bhajan said, warm them up however you want to. Just don't change the kriyas. You know, and in the Kundalini teacher training manual, level 1, there are sun salutations. So, I mean, I feel like I'm still being pretty, you know, I honored that fairly well.
Oh, I've heard your trainings like really going really well. So
yay!
From students. So
good.
So what do you have any suggestions for like someone that is like nervous about doing something different in their class? Like, so let's say that they teach a vinyasa class, but right now they want to, maybe not right now, but like they feel a change happening. Yeah. So they want to do more power, or they want to actually do more of a gentle flow. Yeah. So how do you suggest that they articulate that to the students or to the manager of their studio or to their manager of wherever they're working?
Right. So that can be tricky.
Yeah, because there's a lot of things that, like, you might be nervous, you might lose students, you might be, but it kind of goes back to.
Well, it's one of those things, like if you're working at a studio, and I know as a studio manager, if you hire someone to teach a specific style, people are coming there for that specific style. So you can't really change it that much, unless it's been like, I would consider doing it if it was this teacher had a super regular following of students, and these students were all on board. Then I would have to go in and change the title of a class, and make an announcement and do all of that this is now this and this. I actually had a disagreement with the teacher once, who decided one day she was going to teach a super gentle, like hardly any movement class at all, and it was a our vinyasa flow class, and I had people come to me and complain about it, and I had to tell her she couldn't do that. I hired her to teach for that class, but if she wanted to teach super gentle yoga, then we have this option over here. She was actually on the schedule on that point. I said, we can change that class to this. So you have to be careful with that as like someone who's running a business. You've got to be consistent for the people that are coming.
Right. So it's more something that there should be a conversation between the teacher and their manager about, like, I feel like I need to start being more gentle right now. So just, or maybe the teacher could be like, I feel more gentle in my own practice. What are some tools that I can have? So I teach a power vinyasa. What are some suggestions you could give the teacher?
Yeah. So one thing that they could do is, if they actually have their sequencing, they have everything worked out, like they are able to teach a really good gentle class. There's also the option of putting in another class, another time frame. But if people are coming, if you've got a good following that are coming to this power vinyasa class, it's not good business to just all of a sudden change it. Yeah. You got to be careful about that. But I have added teachers' classes on the schedule for, gentle. Basically that's why my schedule is so full, because I have all these teachers I really want to do yin class. I'm like, okay, well, we'll add one this night, so I'd actually like to have more yin and restorative yoga. As it is, I don't have enough. So it's just trying to fit that in. How are we going to fit that in? I need 3 rooms, right? I would love to have more therapeutic, again, restorative, all of that. So, yeah.
Well, fall is the time to plant seeds.
Yes.
So, what is planted now will start to grow, so yeah, that's kind of...
Granted, all of the morning, let's say 9:30 a.m. classes, people that come to those classes want to move.
Right. Totally.
So they want to move, and we've spent the past 3 years building that clientele. So I just put in Katie's workshops for something gentle at 9 a.m. and that's it's takes a while to get people that want to come for that, because mostly everyone that's coming here is they want to move.
Yeah.
That's how it's been set up.
Yeah. So I guess, how has your reach or communication, marketing, how has that changed over the years of owning the studio? Because how do you build, because it's, Spokane is a smaller market, and you do share it with other great studios. So how has that evolved over the years here at the Shala?
Yeah, there are definitely quite a few more studios there. You can start getting freaked out about the competition, but I feel like there's enough for everybody still.
Yeah, you're sending people away, it sounds like, with Ashtanga.
Sometimes, yeah. If somebody really wants to study something like Ashtanga, we don't have that base here anymore. It's just not here.
I love that integrity, though, because it just kind of keeps with the yoga, what yoga is, just integrity and sharing.
Well, you're going to benefit as a place of business, as a teacher, everything, if you keep that integrity. You can't be all things to everyone all the time.
Yeah.
And then you find, you have a stronger community because of that. Yeah, the way of marketing and everything changes a lot. It's changed a lot. I used a lot of online marketing. I used to do a lot more flyers, and I found that those took a lot of energy and time to create and put out, and not really a lot of return on those. people sharing stuff online, you know, just getting people to like, you know, please share this with others. I make teachers co-hosts on events, and, you know, I hope they share.
Yeah.
They don't always, you know, but I do put a lot into promotion. And then I think I'm gonna, you know, the more just going down this road, I may need to hire someone to help me with it, because the way like the online algorithms go, and the way, you know, you can market something to one set, you know, one time period and it works, and then all of a sudden it stops working, and I don't have the time to devote to that, to learn about it. So that's why there are people now that make a living being, you know, marketers for businesses, because they know how to do that. That's what they spend all their time on. So I mean, that's like maybe something down the road that I'm going to have to do, because I've noticed, a lot of my online reach isn't what it used to be,
right?
You know, because these things have changed, and I don't know what's going on. I'm like, I'm still trying. Okay, I don't know why this isn't working very well, you know. Right. So, but definitely word of mouth is really, is still really good, especially in a small community. So, you know, and you can do programs to help, you know, refer, you know, you can have like referral specials and things like that, which I need to do, and I haven't done that for a while. So
yeah, maybe fun for the holidays, because
I had a really good idea. Like I thought it was amazing, but it was impossible to set up in our software. And I don't know how these other companies did it. Like I got it from YogaWorks, which is like this huge like yoga company in this country, and they have a great program. You know, and I'm pretty sure still really, really great yoga too, even though the main owner, Maddie, doesn't own it anymore. She was Kia's teacher, one of Kia's teachers.
Is Kia here locally?
No, she's like all over the world. She's, Kia was with YogaWorks in Santa Monica, I believe, which was one of their first studios. And now YogaWorks is all over the world, but Kia is no longer like a YogaWorks teacher. Like she met Guru Singh, another Guru Prem, who's like the alignment-based Kundalini teacher, through YogaWorks, and became really involved in Kundalini yoga. And she stopped doing her trainings through YogaWorks at a certain point and just became independent. So she travels all over and does yoga trainings all over the world. I'm trying to get in on her training in India this February. I'm on a waiting list.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. See how that works.
How many people do you think are going to go to that?
I don't know, because a good number of the people that are in that training are her husband's students too. So Tommy Rosen.
Oh, okay.
He's
I know that name.
Yeah, he's a Kundalini teacher. Okay. He also heads Recovery 2.0, which is using yoga and other wellness, you know, practices for sobriety. It's huge. He's really successful at it, and he, you know, does bring a lot of Kundalini teachings into it. Kundalini yoga addresses stuff like that. There's a huge aspect of Kundalini yoga that addresses a wide variety of mental health issues, addiction, really interesting practices and kriyas that you do to, you know, affect your brain and how it works. So he's really into promoting that. So they're kind of like this yoga power duo, basically. And they're going to be doing that together. So I don't know how many people are in that one. I was kind of surprised. I was like, oh my gosh, it's sold out. Oh no.
Have you emailed them and like
I did. I asked her to get on the waiting list. So we'll see what happens.
I hope it works out.
Yeah, I mean, Kia did tell me, because I saw her in September, she said, you should get on, you should check into that, because I think it's selling out. And I was like, oh, okay. And then like I waited too long to check in, and it was like,
it will work out. That's fun too.
Yeah, I know. And I'm going to go see her again in California in May, I believe, anyway.
So do you see her a few times a year?
That's my goal.
Yeah.
And I spent a few years without having a teacher, and it was really lonely. I like having a teacher. I like having that community myself as well, and someone to keep you, that's another aspect to keep you interested in your yoga, you know, having a teacher that keeps it fresh and new for you. You're learning new things. Also someone to tell you when you need to change something you're doing and what you're doing isn't correct. So it's really, really good to have that. It's humbling. It can be really humbling. I mean, Kia told me I was being a codependent yoga teacher on some of my stuff that I was, some of the things I was doing. And she was like, no, you have to give people this experience. You can't do that. It's being codependent. You can't do that. Which was great. I was so happy to learn that. It freed me up. From, again, trying to overly help people or overly, create this thing so it could be doable for somebody. And really, in essence, once again, I was cutting off their own power by preventing them from having the whole experience. So it's really important to have a teacher. To have somebody that does that.
Yeah, so is she like your connection then to staying up on the yoga industry and staying up on what's...
Somewhat, yeah. I do do a lot of my own research online as well, and there are actually people that make a living doing this now and helping yoga teachers and yoga studios, market and create programs that help their studios run better. I tried to get involved in one last year, but I just wasn't ready for it. It was a huge, comprehensive program, and I did learn a few things from it. I just wasn't ready to step into this huge program. So,
but with your Kundalini practice, though, because I'm sure things do evolve, or there are changes. So Kia She shares that with you, this is the most recent or best practices that we've been kind of finding out. Okay, cool.
And Kia has dedicated her life to that. She does not have children. Her babies, her life is her yoga and being a yoga teacher and sharing it with huge integrity to people all over the world. So I'm super grateful for someone like that can dedicate their whole life to that. I chose to have children, so I am not able to put myself on that kind of a level, but then that's why I have a teacher that does that, so she can share that stuff with me. And I've told her that I'm just so grateful for her and appreciate all the work she's done to create all of these connections for me to help me see the bigger picture with what's going on in yoga and in the yoga world. And also coming from such a place of compassion and love for people and everything they're going through. She'll help me. We had this huge conversation where I'm upset with, the sexual exploitation in the yoga world and, how it happens to be. Why are men doing this? And there are some women that do it, but overall it's men. And she just said, it's really hard to be in a man's body right now. So I know it's hard to see these things. Just keep choosing compassion and love for these people. They're all working with a lot right now. So it's because I get really protective about things like that, and it's hard to see it. They're ruining yoga. No, I mean, and it's been an issue, people's integrity in the yoga world. Again, not just with how you share your teachings or the qualifications you give yourself when you actually haven't done the training because you think you have to be all things to everyone, but also personal boundary issues within yoga. I think for me, what I get from it is that yoga attracts people who know they have issues, and then it brings your issues up so you can see them. So while you are in your yoga practice, wherever you are, those things are going to come up, and they may not be pretty.
Yeah, I was listening to Judith Lassiter, and she was talking about how she'll have people say, I just don't like Shavasana, so they'll leave, and so they'll talk to her so they'll say, I don't like Shavasana because this and this, and then she just said that I'm kind of paraphrasing, but she'll just kind of look at them and kindly say, well, you're seeing stuff that maybe you just need to see, or you're not able to to handle it, but if you see it through, eventually you'll start to understand it better, or what. I can't really exactly explain what she said, but yoga does. It's like yoga is all about the stilling of the mind.
Yeah.
Or the big metaphor is like you're like a still placid lake.
Right, stilling
know,
those fluctuations.
But there's still like the lake is a mirror.
Right.
And it's a reflection. And so, you know, when you're in that process, you are constantly you are looking at yourself, and it's you go deep into your water and you explore.
When it's choppy waves,
Yeah.
you can't see it very well. When you're like, looking.
Yeah.
And again, it's not like your mind is clear of thoughts. You are still, so you can see that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it is your reflection there, you know. There's that Rumi phrase, for how will you be polished if you are irritated at every rub? Yeah.
That is so cute.
And I do have some students that really resist Shavasana, and I talk to them about it. You know, it took me a really long time too. I totally understand, you know, and I talk about why it's the most important posture. And it is that bridge between, you know, incorporating the physical, just that physical aspect, and then learning to move into the stillness towards creating your meditation practice. So Shavasana is that bridge there, and that's why it's so hard, and it's okay that it's hard. This is what it's doing.
It's going to be hard.
Yeah.
Going back to what you're talking about when we talked to Kia about the sexual misconduct that's happened, kind of just wanted to talk about that briefly, about adjustments, like hands-on adjustments. Is it, like for a student, is it appropriate for them to say to their teacher before they go to a class, like, no hands-on adjustments, or do you have any kind of suggestions for students on how they can, if they do want adjustments or they don't, like how they can articulate that?
Well, we had these little cards on the front desk, one that said, please adjust, one that said, please do not, but we just realized that no one really ever used them. So for me, if someone tells me they don't want to be adjusted, I am totally okay with that. I do not ever want to put my hands on someone that doesn't want to be adjusted. In my earlier years as a teacher, I would do that. I would adjust people, and the benefits of that is that you would show someone, you know, in their body how to align when words don't work. But I just won't go there with somebody who doesn't want me to do it. And I always ask people first, may I give you an adjustment? And, you know, I rarely have anyone say no. And if they say no, I'm like, okay, good, thanks for listening to yourself. And, you know, I just, there's so much going on in people's, in their minds and their bodies and their spirits, and we don't know what's going on. And sometimes, you know, for certain people, coming to a yoga class is incredibly healing, but they cannot be adjusted by somebody else, especially if they've had anyone violate that, you know, especially, you know, sexual abuse, anything like that. When they were a child, like having someone come and do things to your body when you're not expecting it can be really traumatic. So I just won't, unless, and even most of the time, unless it's somebody I really, really know, I will give certain adjustments to. Other people I won't. Like there's one way I love to do down dog, and I have to get up right behind them and put my elbows in their hip creases and hold their front ribs, but I won't do that with anybody I don't really know, because that's really kind of a
you can do that
closey.
Anytime.
Okay, it is kind of an intimate type of adjustment, you know, that you can give to someone.
Definitely.
So, you got to be careful with that. Anything like on people's legs and hips and stuff, you know, I try to be really light with my adjustments, especially just energy directing with light hand touches or directional touches, you know, that external rotation of the upper arm bones, just really soft. And again, I always ask people. And
what I like, and what I've been learning as well is that by reducing physical adjustments, you as a teacher are going to learn more. Your cueing library will grow.
Yes.
Because you'll see, okay, these students understood feet parallel with that cue, but I have 3 who didn't. So then that's a creative element in the practice. So then you learn more cueing that hits more people so you can grow your library greater, because you are going to have classes where you're going to have a lot of students and you just cannot go around and physically adjust and
damage control first.
Yeah. yes. Well, okay. Okay. I think we're kind of coming down to the end. So just a few like round robin kind of questions. So first of all, what is one place in Spokane that people should visit?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so like if you're listening to this and you live somewhere not in Spokane.
Well, of course you've got to go to Riverfront Park and see the falls and all of that. I mean, it's amazing. It's beautiful. You've got to do that. Within the city, you know, Manitou Park, you know, I mean, I love Spokane. Around the city, you know, around the area, all the beautiful hiking trails and natural areas and all of that. I just think that's so cool. Architecturally, I don't know. I actually haven't done a lot of that. I know there's a cathedral up there that's really cool up there. Cool. I'm just more like natural areas. Yeah. Like, that's where I'm at.
Me too.
Yeah.
Falls and nature.
Yeah.
Can't go wrong here. So what is your favorite hobby outside of yoga?
Oh, well, I mean, hobby. Everything is so yoga related. I'm like, everything I do is yoga so much where people are like, okay, my partner, John, is like, can we talk about something else? No. I mean, art. I love art. So, and to me, like, my yoga practice is what inspires me to make art for the most part. Like, I went to art school and completely had this artist block. And then once I started doing yoga again, like, my creativity came back. So I'm really into, that's something I want to do in the future, is do more yoga practices for creativity to help people unleash their creativity and their, you know, even if it's their voice or, you know, any type of art, music, anything like that.
I can't be great. All right. Well, what seeds are you planting now that you are expecting to grow over the next year? Or where would you like to see yourself this time next year?
Oh, well, definitely some studio growth ideas. I still want to be doing either a teacher training or possibly doing more of my own workshop series, for sure. Yeah. Okay.
And with that said, then, do you have any events in January or like early in 2019 that?
Yes. So my teacher training is ending the third week of January. Then I have Scott and Ida from Ghost Yoga coming.
Yeah.
And then let me see, Rhea's teacher training for Vinyasa, and Rhea's a beautiful teacher trainer. I mean, I took a private training from her. I have not participated in a full-on group training, but I will say the teachers that come out of her training are always wonderful. Let's see, and that starts the 27th also, so the same weekend as Ghosh, but hers is just on Sunday. So some people could still go to Ghosh if they want to do that training, then come on Sunday. Let's see, I tend to have regular workshops. I don't think we're going to have dream time here too much in January, maybe once. There's always going to be some kind of sound healing, event that we have. I often work with Sarah Rusnak and the Ayurveda and yoga. I mean, we have tons of stuff. There's always things that are coming up.
Just follow Yoga Shala on social media, and then you'll see all the workshops.
Yes, tons of things. Yes, totally.
Okay, so what is your least favorite posture? Or do you not have one? Do you love them all?
No, I don't love them all, which is like, I tend to have been very good at avoiding the ones I don't love, because often the yoga lineages I follow don't incorporate them.
Oh, interesting. Now I get it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know why it is, but just with some of my shoulder and neck issues, and I always felt like it was a health issue for me, things like forearm stand have been really hard on me. Does that mean I shouldn't have been practicing it at all? No, I probably could have been practicing intermediate steps to it to build up to it. I just haven't so much. Yeah, but I mean, really, I do love a lot of the yoga postures. Yeah, there aren't many that I don't really, dislike. There's some that are really, really hard. But I've learned over the years, those ones, when I do them, just like I'm talking about forearm stand, like if I had made that part of my practice, I would feel the same way. For example, locust, Shalabhasana in the Bikram series, the one where you put your arms under your body and you lift both legs up. Like that one is the one that universally is hated. I've grown to really love that one. It's hard, but it's super powerful and freeing. And once you get how to balance your weight in it, you feel pretty weightless. It's really, really nice.
Yeah.
So there's just that, if you dislike a posture, practicing it can help you move through that, or maybe it's not for you.
Yeah.
Like I know Allie doesn't do a lot of the inversions as well because they're really hard on her neck. And I've experienced some of that too, just some of the way that I tend to habitually lock in my neck and shoulders when I do those types of postures. They are not necessarily beneficial for me. I've easily been able to avoid them.
Yeah.
That being said, there are steps you can take if you really, really want to practice those. You can do different types of postures that, strengthen and retrain those areas of your body. Get fascia release, massage, doing things like that. If you really seem to have struggled with certain postures and you really want to learn how to do them, you can.
Yes. Yeah.
I just avoided them.
What's your most favorite posture?
Oh my goodness. I don't know if I have a favorite one. I mean, I love Ego Eradicator. That's so beautiful.
And it's also pranayama as well.
It's pranayama.
Yeah.
I love it. In the Bikram series, it's funny. This was also another posture that I disliked a lot, was standing bow. Really disliked that posture because I had constantly for years just the balance. It was just so hard for me to nail the balance in it. But again, that's one of those things, like you learn, you just keep doing it, and so I committed to practicing that series and I did it all the time. So dang, I eventually got it, and it's still like, if I have off days, I have trouble balancing in it, but it's kind of like, oh well, but it's so empowering to see the growth I've had in that one particular posture. Like my understanding of it has completely changed from when I first started doing it, and back then when I thought I got alignment, and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's just it though. The practices always change, and what you really don't like now, you eventually might like it one day because you just have learned more about it, or your body has gotten stronger, and then you can get into it. And what poses you like now, I've been talking to a lot of people who've been practicing yoga for a while, and some of these poses, more advanced postures, they just don't enjoy them quite as much because their practice has taken a different route. They become more into a more sustainable yoga practice.
Yep,
so
sustainable is the word.
Yeah.
That's also true for me. I don't tend to go for those more advanced postures as much anymore. I don't feel like I have to have a yoga practice. They tend, like I said, if I want to really work into that, I have to spend a lot of time making that an objective goal, and I'm doing other things. So I don't really do them as much. And if I perfect my forearm stand or whatever, does that make me a better yogi? I don't know. I mean, maybe in some ways it could be good for me, but yeah, I do tend to be more gentle with myself.
Last question. So to you, what is the goal of yoga?
Well, I mean, yoga, anything that is yoga denotes a system in and of itself that allows you to connect to your innermost unchanging state of being. So there are many things that can be yoga.
Right, it's not just poses, like it's because there's all the 7 limbs which we've touched on, like pranayama. We've talked about that sweetness, finding bliss with the
Right.
crown chakra and
withdrawing the senses and meditation and really that state of samadhi is
samadhi.
again,
That's it. Yeah.
that to me is when you connect, when you find a good connection to your innermost being, that unchanging being. They say that never dies. You know, it's your buddhi, it's your Krishna state. You know, if you study the Bhagavad Gita, you know, that's the higher mind that's there, and you really learn to connect to that, and you're not being pulled all over the place by life. Is life still going to be all over the place? Are things that going to come up for you that are hard? Yes. But through reaching that yogic state, you are no longer being controlled by it. You just sit in that innermost state of being, which is a pretty profound goal to work towards. Yeah.
And you can feel that too just by going on a hike as well. You know, like it's amazing how the lessons we learn on the mat start to bridge over into our life. Or even if you haven't been on the mat for a while, or even if you aren't a yogi, you can still find that those limbs in that state outside.
And the thing about yoga, though, is it's systematic and it's intentional. So there is yoga. You can reach that state through playing music or making art, but with those practices, there isn't an overall well-rounded program, really, you know, that help you address the other things that come up for you. So really your only state of finding that yoga is when you're in that practice. And that's the same thing with a yoga, like a physical yoga practice. If that's all you're doing when you find yoga, when you're in your practice, but you're not doing other stuff to help broaden that platform for your inner connection, then you're in yogic view, you're not really doing a full yoga practice.
And the other stuff are the other limbs of yoga.
Right. You know, you're practicing the yamas and the niyamas, and you're practicing, you know, you're practicing your practice.
Right.
And you're studying yourself, and you're learning from yourself while you do your practice, and then you're incorporating that element of surrender to your higher self, to your connection to your higher self. Some people say God, you know, and I tend to go more to the higher self part, you know, that maybe that's the connection to whatever God is to you or anything else, but that's really like a overriding aspect of yoga practice, and what the yoga program is that.
The other day I went to a yin practice in Seattle. Sunday night, and it was at, I think, Booty Yoga, or I don't know what it's called, but my good friend goes there, and we had a teacher. His name was Dante, and he taught a yin class. And what he said was surrender to your God. And I thought that was really powerful, because it wasn't directing a certain religion or anything. It was just like he really kept it within you, and I thought that was such a great way, or surrender to your understanding of God.
Right.
And I thought that was awesome. And I haven't really heard that maybe I was just ready to hear it, but it was so clear and also very expansive. So everyone in that room, no matter what their God is, their God could be rock climbing. Right. You know, it's just like they were able to comfortably, at least in my perspective, comfortably exist in that shavasana. Right.
Yeah. For me, I tend to come to it as your higher self.
Yeah, that's nice.
The Vijnana Maya Kosha layer of being, and there was an analogy in the Bhagavad Gita that was in one of the notes in one version that I was looking at about Krishna talking about the higher and lower mind, and how they're both two birds on one branch, and the lower mind bird, and it shouldn't be necessarily thought of in negative connotations, but the lower mind bird is the experiencing bird. That's the one that goes out and tastes everything and does everything and experiences everything. The higher mind bird is the one that quietly guides. You know, quietly. When I read that, I cried. Like, it really was like, oh my gosh, because that practice of yoga is what gets you from being the experiencing, tasting, doing all the time. While you're doing that, then listening to the higher mind bird, you know, and that's the higher self. That's the higher self, and it's never harsh, it's never cruel, it's never negative, but it can be quieter, and it is always guiding and directive. I'm sorry, I have an itchy nose, but it's, again, just learning to listen to that. Like, how do you get to listen to that? Because I have people ask me, like, how do I tell the difference between what my ego is, you know, the negative ego, and my higher self, you know, these voices in my head, you know? Well, it's really, again, it's comes from a place of love, and it is quiet. Yeah. It's guiding. It may not tell you what you want to hear, but it is, again, it is not punishing. You know, it may ask you to do things that you don't want to do, though, you know, because it's hard to do, you know. So that's why we don't always listen to it. Right. But again, that's like, for me, my yoga practice has been more and more to listen to that higher bird, that other bird, because I have done so many things in my life where I didn't. And I learned that it's actually that quiet, calm, guiding bird may be asking you to do something that's very difficult. But if you do that, it's much less painful than doing the less conscious, easy thing that's in front of you. Yeah, and it's also more like rewarding as well. It is, in the end, you know, but I've avoided doing things in my life that were really, really hard to face, because, and I just was like, I don't want to deal with that. That'll just, like, go away eventually. No, it doesn't go away. It just gets harder and harder, and then you have to then you really have to address it, and it becomes even bigger. So, yeah, listening to your higher self is really important. And, you know, if you are anyone that struggles with like, if you're more religious and you want, you know, you have a connection to a being that's out there, I can relate that to that inner being is the voice of that being out there. You know, you can relate to it that way. Is there anything that you want to kind of finish off with saying? I mean, maybe just to recap the yoga practice. I really think that yoga is for everyone. You can find practices that are yogic, that help lead you to this state, that are not necessarily within the, you know, from India. You know, it may not have the title of yoga, but there are other ways out there. I do believe that energetically, for the world to be a better place, that, you know, it would help all of us to find some kind of system to balance our lower energy centers, so we stop living in them and come up to the heart, and then be able to manifest what that does for us out there in the world. Yeah. So find some yoga type of practice, everybody, please.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Much.
Yes.
Namaste.
Namaste and Satnam.
Yes. Oh, thank you. This is amazing.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you. Ara, thank you so much for your time and energy with this podcast. You shared some great information, and I took so much away from our chat. I cannot wait to see you again. I really hope that you enjoyed it. Please stay tuned for next week, where we talk to two friends who have brought a holistic co-op to the Spokane community, the Lotus. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast and subscribe to our mailing list, and leave a review on Facebook or in the iTunes store. All of Ara's contact information and the notable yogis that she referenced can be found down below in the description box, and also on Yogakane's website. Under the podcast blog, just click on Ara's podcast. All right, well, I will talk to you next week in episode 3. In the meanwhile, if you know of any yoga teachers who should be interviewed, please send me their information. And if you have any yoga-related questions, please send them my way, and I will do my best to get them answered. Please take care of yourself, and Happy New Year. Shanti, peace, and namaste.